In this problem, we need to allocate overhead using three different methods. The first using a single plant-wide predetermined overhead rate. The second one using predetermined overhead rates set up by departments, the two departments being the assembly department and the painting department. And in the third method, we'll apply overhead using activity-based costing using three different activities: material handling, quality inspection, and utilities. Let's begin with our plant-wide predetermined overhead rate. Using our plant-wide predetermined overhead rate, overhead is applied on the basis of total direct cost. That's both direct materials and labor. We're given the per unit amounts for the assembly department for materials and labor, and for the painting department, and the number of units produced. So our direct material for the assembly department will be our $3 per unit times 700 units. Direct materials for the cargo planes will be the $2 per unit times 1,100 units. The labor cost for fighter planes will be the $4 per unit times 700 units, and so on. Our total direct cost is $15,300. And that's going to be our allocation base we see for calculating the predetermined overhead rate. Our total manufacturing overhead is $12,546. $12,546 divided by the $15,000 gives us a rate of 82 cents per direct dollar cost. Next thing we have to do is allocate our overhead. Our total direct cost for the fighter planes is $5,590. So to allocate our overhead, we'll take the 82 cent predetermined overhead rate times the $5,590 to get total overhead of $4,879. For the overhead that we allocate to the cargo planes, we'll take the 82 cents times 9,350 in total direct costs. Once we've calculated or allocated overhead, we need to pick up the actual direct costs, which were $5,950 and $9,350. We add those together to get the total cost of the fighter planes and the total cost of the cargo planes, and then we'll take our total cost and divide it by the number of units, and our number of units was 700 cargo planes. So we're taking our total cost, 10,829 divided by 700 planes, and for the fighters, we'll take our total cost of 17,000 and divide it by 1,100 planes. The second method we're using calculating departmental overhead rates. The assembly department, the costs are going to be allocated on the basis of direct labor costs, while the painting department will be allocated on the basis of total direct costs. The first step is to pick up our total overhead for the assembly department and the total overhead for the painting department. There's the 8,525 and there's the 4,021. For the assembly department, we're going to allocate on the basis of direct labor cost in the assembly department. Here was the direct labor cost in the assembly department, and it totaled 7,750. Our predetermined overhead rate for the painting department is based on the total direct cost of the painting department. Our total materials cost in the painting department is $2,000. The labor cost in the painting department is $1,250 for a combined total direct cost of $3,250. So in each case, we take our cost divided by the allocation base to calculate our predetermined overhead rates. The next step then is to apply our manufacturing overhead. Again, in the assembly department, it's going to be our predetermined overhead rate of $1.10 times the direct labor cost. And our direct labor cost for the fighters was $2,800. For the cargo planes, again, the 1.1 predetermined overhead rate times our direct labor cost in the assembly department of $4,950. For allocating our overhead in the painting department, again, we're going to take our predetermined overhead rate which in this case is the $1.23 per total direct cost. And the direct cost will include both the materials in the painting department and the labor. So we'll take our 123 and multiply it by 700 plus 350. For the cargo planes, again, we'll take our predetermined overhead rate of 123, multiply it by the total direct cost in the painting department, which was $16.50 for materials and $5.50 for labor. We can confirm that we've picked up all of our overhead by taking the sum of our allocated overhead here. And if we add up these four numbers, we find that it does equal the $12,546, which was our total overhead we had to apply. We add to our overhead our direct costs, and again, we had picked those up right here in row up here for in part 1. We take our total cost, divide it by the number of units, and get a cost per unit. Finally, under activity-based costing, we're going to allocate our cost on the basis of 3 separate activities: material handling, quality inspection, and then utilities. In this case, it's a little odd because we've chosen to allocate both material handling and inspection on the number of batches. And since that's the same activity, we could have really combined those two cost pools into one and then used 2 activity rates. But in any case, we're going to go with what we have. So for our first activity rate, the $3,575, that's the overhead cost of our material handling, and we're going to divide it by 410 total batches. Our inspection, the overhead is $5,346. We divide it again by the number of batches. For utilities, our overhead cost is $3,625, and we're going to allocate this on the basis of we are told total direct labor cost in both assembly and painting, and that would be our $1,250 plus our $750 or $9,000. So we calculate our predetermined overhead rates, then we allocate them. For material handling, it's simply the 320 batches multiplied by our 8.72. Batches for a cargo plane were 90, and so to allocate overhead there, again, we take our predetermined overhead rate, $8.72, multiply it by 90, which is our number of batches. For inspection, we're going to do the same thing. We take our predetermined rate times 320, and for the cargo planes, our predetermined rate of 13 times 90 batches. Finally, in allocating overhead for our utilities, we take our predetermined overhead rate, which was 0.402, and multiply it by our $350 and $700, which was our direct cost, and our $2,800 plus $700, which was our direct labor cost for the fighter planes. So direct labor cost for the fighter planes was $2,800 and $700 or $3,500, and we multiply that by our predetermined overhead rate. For the cargo planes, again, we're going to take our predetermined overhead rate of 40 cents, multiply it by, in this case, our direct labor cost for the cargo planes was $49.50 for cargo, for assembly, and $5.50 for direct labor in the painting department. Once we've allocated our total overhead, we're going to add to that our direct costs. We calculate our total cost. Finally, again, we divide our total cost by the number of units, which we had at the very top, and we get a cost per unit.